So, on Friday, I went around and rode a bunch of trains because there were a couple things that I've noticed that have been really interesting. And the first thing is that what kind of food is available in each train station varies mostly by two things: how popular the train stop is. Like, if it's a tourist stop, there'll always be more food options than if it's not a tourist stop. And how many lines that station serves. So, for example, the stop that I'm at is a very small station. It's at the outer west edge of Berlin. Not a lot of tourists come through here. So we have two entrances on either side. And there is in the middle a vending machine. And that's the only in station food that there is. However, the further in towards Berlin you get, the more likely you are to see cafes and vending machines and sometimes flower shops. For example, Zulistergarten is a train station. It's one of the few train stations that houses the grocery store that's open on Sunday. There are only like 5 grocery stores that are open on Sunday, and the one in Zulistergarten is one of them. And that train station houses multiple U-Bahn lines, the S-Bahn, maybe more than one S-Bahn line, a bunch of buses, and also some regional rail. So that station has cafes and a flower shop inside the station, and then you come out of the station and there's the grocery store and more cafes and a Dunkin' Donuts. Touristy. So it's also very similar in Alexanderplatz. That station is has a lot of tourists, so there are food options inside of the station. It has multiple U-Bahn lines, and directly adjacent to it ish is the S-Bahn, which you can see when you come up out of the station. Something else that is interesting while we're kind of on this topic is that in some cases you can get to the S-Bahn from the U-Bahn by just sort of going through a tunnel underground and switching trains that way. But other times you have to exit the U-Bahn station and then walk about a block and go down and then up into the S-Bahn station. The other thing that is different about the U-Bahn versus the S-Bahn is that the U-Bahn runs mostly underground. There are some above ground parts, but it runs mostly underground, and the S-Bahn is the opposite. The S-Bahn runs mostly above ground with some underground parts. Which brings me to the second thing that I have found interesting coming from the US and exploring a new train system, and that is accessibility on train stations. It varies wildly, and that too is contingent on the same factors that determine whether or not you have a vending machine, or if you have a vending machine or a cafe inside of your train station, with the exception of the S-Bahn. So most of the S-Bahn stations that I've been to have elevators, which makes sense because I would expect there to be elevators at every station, but there's not with U-Bahn. So when you're riding the U-Bahn and you're going around and you get to areas that are more residential and less touristy, the amount of elevators available to your train station significantly decreases. Thankfully, Deutsche Bahn has a map of the entire system, and on that map of the entire system, they have icons for the stations that have elevators, which is very helpful because if you are traveling with children in a stroller, or if you use a wheelchair or other kinds of mobility devices that make stairs or escalators very difficult, if not impossible, to navigate, then you have to be able to plan your route around whether or not you can get on and off the platform. My station in my neighborhood only has stairs. A lot of stations in more residential areas will sometimes have stairs and escalators, but mine only has stairs. It's very interesting because my neighborhood consists of a lot of retirees. and people with mobility problems or people with multiple children in strollers. So they have to go up and down stairs if they want to use the station that is closest. Or what more likely happens is they have to go maybe half a mile, maybe a little more than that, to the next station, which is the station that has an elevator. And that also only serves one line, but it is a more populous station than this one is. So there's more businesses around there and more grocery shops, and it's just a slightly more dense area than the one that I currently live in. It's very handy that there is a map with all of these elevators on them. What is intriguing to me as well is that on the train signs there is always a car, or usually a car with a area for wheelchairs or strollers, and those will have the little wheelchair icon on them. And this intrigued me at first, and I thought it was really weird and interesting because, yes, the train itself is accessible. You can put a stroller or a bike or a wheelchair or a rollator or whatever on the train. But whether or not you can get out of the station is really kind of hit or miss, especially depending on like if you have someone with you who can help you or not, or if maybe someone kind will get off the train and help you up the stairs, which was something I saw the other day. It really varies because, as it turns out, there's not an accessibility standard here. Like the ADA in the US is horrifically insufficient, but at the same time, there is a bare minimum. Like every single BART station has an elevator. It doesn't always work, but every single BART station has an elevator. Not every single U-Bahn station has an elevator. Not every single U-Bahn station has an escalator. My U-Bahn station only has stairs. I make the calculation that I'm sure a lot of my elderly neighbors are making as well, because we live in a apartment building that also doesn't have an elevator and struggle going up and down multiple flights of stairs. So the question sometimes is, yes, I need to run errands, but can I, one, get out of my apartment, and two, if I can do that, do I have enough energy to also go up and down the station stairs to get on the train and off the train if the station that I need to get off at doesn't have an escalator or an elevator? And on top of that, after I do that errand and have to bring however much stuff home with me, do I have the energy to make that turn in reverse, to go back up out of the stairs of the stop and back up multiple flights of stairs into my apartment carrying a bunch of stuff? Yeah. So, what I have learned in all of this is that if you need to live somewhere or be somewhere with any kind of accessibility at all, you need to make sure that you're at a station that has an elevator or an escalator. And that means living somewhere a bit denser, a bit more, not necessarily touristy, but where there are a lot more people. And also means that you need to look for an apartment or townhome or whatever that says it's barrier free. And even then, like my doctor's office was barrier free because they have an elevator inside, but there was still 10 steps to get up into the doctor's office in the first place. So Germany is a really difficult place for people who have any kind of mobility impairments or have strollers or like can't get around on foot or bike reliably all the time, which is interesting, and I guess maybe my next mission here. But that's what I've learned. I have decided that when we move to a place, when we move out of this place, obviously, like the whole reason I live in cities is because I want to live in a city where I don't have to drive a car, and I love being around lots of people. So we're going to live somewhere that has a little bit higher density, somewhere that is in a newer building with an elevator, because old buildings obviously don't come with elevators by default. And ideally, with those two things combined, that will place us near an U-Bahn or an S-Bahn station that also has an elevator or an escalator. But these are the things that I didn't think about before moving over, because I just assumed that every single train station would have some way of being accessed for people who can't walk downstairs. And I was wrong. So that's this week's insight. Hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry that for all of the train videos, there is actually not a lot of train footage. The trains were really busy the day that I went, but this will not be the only train video, and it will not be the last train video. I will get probably some footage of riding the S-Bahn sometime, because it's very pretty to ride and look out the windows at. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed visiting a bunch of random stations with me. And if you want to see more, if you liked the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you have ideas or tips, leave them in the comments, and I will see you next time. Post-edit, Kieran here. I almost forgot. I can't believe I almost forgot the update on the ordeal that was getting my meds sorted. Oh my god. Okay, so doctor was able to get most of my shit filled except for testosterone. Fine, whatever. There was one we couldn't fill. It was the dicyclamine, because that doesn't exist here. So I have this, which allegedly does basically the same thing. I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to use my dicyclamine until I'm done. I had to pay out of pocket because my insurance didn't come through in time. I did get my social security number in the mail. The day that I went to pick up my stuff, I got my insurance number. But because of how prescriptions are handled here, because my script was prescribed to be private or self-pay, I had to pay the full cost. The full cost was €425, which involved doing an emergency bank transfer from a US bank and taking out most of savings just so I could fill my meds for another month or so. The other problems that we ran into were my antidepressant, bupropion, the generic for Wellbutrin, only comes in 150 milligrams here. I take 75. So I have to randomly double my dose because I cannot cut these pills. Let me show you. These are the pills. They're round and don't have a line, and they are raised in the middle, and they're so tiny. So that's gonna be an issue. My top of the head solution to that is that if I'm doubling my Wellbutrin, then I should double the Buspar, because again, anything over 100 milligrams of Wellbutrin makes my anxiety skyrocket. So maybe instead of taking 30 milligrams of Buspar a day, I need to move up to 60. However, I still have a stash of my current dose, so I'm going to wait until I can get an appointment with a psychiatrist, because I need that for my Ritalin. And then I will ask them there if there's a way to work around that, which will probably be doubling my dose, which means I'll just need to get another refill. The other thing is that my Ritalin is also doubled. I have 50 10 milligram Ritalin tablets. Fortunately, I guess we can't see them in here. Fortunately, these do have a cut down the middle, so I can maintain my current dose of Ritalin, which I might do. I may also experiment with 10 to see if that's better. I took 10 milligrams the other day, and I feel like I felt the effects of it the next day, so I don't know. I kind of just felt like caffeine buzzed, so I think I'll just stick with 5 because that's what's working right now. But, yeah, so what I have to do now is contact the insurance that we have, which is public insurance, and we're using TK, so as soon as I get my actual, like, way to log into the app, I can submit the receipt from paying out of pocket, and they will reimburse me, hopefully, most of the 400 plus euros that I spent getting all of this filled. And from then on, hopefully, my medications won't be so much. They did have naltrexone, and it is apparently water soluble. So as long as they had it in the 50 milligrams, so I can still drink my gross water. My amlodipine is fine. I have another month of gabapentin, and I have another month of Prilosec. So, outside of wiping a huge chunk of my US savings and still not having testosterone fully sorted and needing to figure out whether or not I'm going to double my Wellbutrin, that's the story. But I got it filled, and I did manage to pay for it. I also learned that the way you pick scripts up here is you just bring the receipt. You, like in the U.S., you go to the pharmacy and you have to be like, "Hi, I'm here to pick up my meds," and they're like, "Okay, what's your name?" And you have to give your name and your birthday, and then they will look you up and hand you your stuff. Here, you just hand them the receipt and they're like, "Oh, okay, I go get it." So that's much simpler. But I confused the dude because I walked in. I was like, "Hi, I'm here to pick up," and he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm here to pick up. I was here earlier. Like, do you need my name?" Like, and he was so confused. So I just handed him the receipt. And he was like, "Oh, that's all I needed." I was like, "Oh, okay." So you just need the receipt. That's it. Uh, yeah. So my next scheduled doctor's appointment is May with a trans doctor. It's supposed to be like a trans intake, so it's probably gonna come as a surprise that I've been on hormones for 5 years, but hopefully that'll be fine. Unless I can get the insurance app and find a doctor through there faster and get a psychiatrist who will prescribe my brain meds in a way that won't fuck me up too much. So that's the update. Apologies for the last video being entirely vertical. That one and the grocery shopping one are both vertical because it feels a lot less awkward for me walking around holding my phone straight up and close to the chest than it does holding it sideways like this, where it seems really obvious that I'm filming. So those are going to be vertical, and we're just going to have to live with it. It's fine. We'd pretend it's TikTok. Anyway, thanks for watching.